Before you start your first Unity project, you need to download the Unity Hub. This is basically an organization tool, a way to download different Unity versions, basically a place that holds everything you need for Unity. You want to first go to unity.com/download, and then you want to download for Windows. What that should do is that it'll download the Unity Hub into your downloads folder. And you can just double click that to set it up. Alright, once you open the Unity Hub setup, you want to agree to all these terms, see where you want it. I want it in the default location, and then it'll install it. I already have it installed, so this will just replace my current download. Alright, I want to click finish. Once you're inside the Unity editor, you should see something like this. This is basically where all your projects will be. You create a new project, you click the new project button, all that stuff. But first, you actually need to have a Unity version installed. So I am actually going to install a new version because there are security alerts on older versions, it seems. So this is a good time as any to install a new version of Unity. So I'm going to click Install Editor, and it gives you a recommended the recommended release that you should download, which is Unity 6.2, a different version, 6.0.2, It doesn't matter which version you download. You can choose to download any of these, whichever one you want. I'm just going to go with the recommended one, so you want to click Install. And there are a couple of things, as you can see, that pop up. First, DevTools, Microsoft Visual Studio Community, Android build support, OpenJDK. All of these things give you the ability to make Android games. This is iOS games. This allows you to build to tvOS, VisionOS, Linux build support, Mac, web build, Universal's window. I'm going to leave these all as checked. I'm going to, I'm not going to click anything else. And just click continue. Again, terms and conditions. I've read all of them. Install. And that should start the installation for Unity. Once we have our Unity version installed, we can now create a new project. So you can go and click plus new project, and Unity has a bunch of templates that you can use. For example, get started with Unity, essentials pathway. There's a bunch of different templates, mixed reality, VR, all this different stuff. We're going to be using the default core templates. We're going to do the universal 2D. We can create a new project. I'm going to call it Flappy Bird. I already have a new project, so I'm just going to Flappy Bird. I guess I already have a Flappy Bird. Just call it Flappy underscore bird. Okay. And you just want to create the project. Okay. We want to accept the terms and conditions. And that should open up Unity. Once we're inside Unity, there are a couple of things that we want to look at. On the left here, we have our hierarchy, and this is basically where every single thing in our scene, which is basically our level, will be. So right now we have our main camera, and we have a global light 2D. Having a camera allows us to actually see things in our scene. If we don't have a camera, let's delete that. We won't be able to see anything, and we'll get a thing that says display 1, no camera rendering. So you need a camera. So this is basically the bare minimum for a game in Unity. To add things to the hierarchy, you can either click this plus, you can either click this plus button, or you can right click and create stuff. For example, we can add a square, and this adds a square, and you can change the position. In the inspector, which is basically a menu for every single object, basically whenever you click an object, different settings and components will pop up. You can set this to 0, 0, 0, which is set to the center. A component is each individual thing on an object. You have the transform component, which is basically the position, rotation, the scale. You have the sprite renderer for a 2D sprite, at least. You can add more components by clicking add components and add component, and you have all this stuff that you can add. With the sprite renderer, you can change the color to whatever you want. And I'm going to change it to red for now. Right now, we're in game view. This is scene view. Scene view is basically every single thing. It's just the way to edit your scenes, your levels. You can add things, you can move things around. This is basically your workspace. You can put things in it, you can move it around. And this game view is basically how the game will look like to you as a player. So you can't click it, you can't move anything around, but you can click things and move things around in scene view. You can also rotate things in scene view, so you don't actually have to edit this stuff. You can scale things. And to undo, you can just do Control Z. To do a rect transform, a rect tool, this basically scales things equally. So it scales things while keeping them in the same position. So you can do stuff like this with a rect tool. You can't just do that with a scale tool. The scale tool scales things. It scales things centered. So yeah, there's that. And then down here you have the project tab, which is basically where all your folders are. You can ignore these. These are the default Unity packages. You can ignore those. Everything you want, everything you should be working with is in the assets folder. Unity gives you a default folder with scenes, so all your scenes. So this is the current scene we're in. If you want to add a new scene, that's basically a different level. And then some settings, you can ignore those. To create something new in here, let's say you want to create a new folder, you can either, again, right click or click plus, and that'll bring up the create menu over here. So if you right click, you'll have to click this create button to get this menu, but if you click the plus, you'll get that menu automatically. However, it's just easier to do the right click. So to add a new folder, you can click the folder and that'll add a new folder. Let's call this prefabs, This is a folder that we will need in the future. Press enter and that creates the prefabs folder. For some reason that gives me an error. Okay, that's fixed. Okay, so now we have a prefabs folder. It's empty. You can put stuff inside of it. If you want, you can create something new. Oop, not showing Explorer. You can create different scripts. You can add different things in each folder. Let's not do anything right now. And in the console will be all the errors you receive. I just received one a couple of seconds ago. For some reason. Sometimes Unity likes to give random errors. Sometimes you can just clear them, and sometimes you have to listen to them. Okay, so again, in summary, we have our hierarchy, which is basically just everything that's in our scene, which is basically our level. You can add things by clicking right click or clicking this plus up here. You also have the inspector, which is basically a menu that has everything on each object. So the main camera, the components that are on are the transform, the camera, and each component is basically like an individual thing that controls some behavior on an object. So the transform component controls the position, the rotation, all that stuff. We have the camera component, an audio listener, and just a script. We also have some stuff on the Global Light 2D. On our square, we also have stuff in the inspector. We have a transform component, a sprite renderer component, and again, you can always add different components while clicking the add component button. So I could add a rigid body component, for example, which just adds gravity. And if we go into our game view, which is different from our scene view allows us to directly manipulate things in our scene. The game is basically how you or the player will see things when playing the game. You can click play up here to test your game. Since the rigid body adds gravity, that component adds gravity, the box falls, the square falls. We can remove that for now. So to remove components, Control Z that, you can either click those three buttons here and click remove component, or you can just Control D. Okay, not Control D. You can just click remove component. Right click, click remove component. Alright, that is everything in here, basically. Another thing you can do is you can also move things around, so you can hold and drag things to any location you want. So if you want the hierarchy down here, you can drag it down there. You can move it up here to the side and resize. But let's just keep it the same, because this is how most people keep their Unity. Alright, to save, you can click Control S. You should always save whenever you do something substantial, so you don't lose your progress. Substantial. Whenever you lose your progress. And that's it for everything in here. Up at the top, we have different options. We have the file, edit, assets, game object. Again, this does the exact same thing as clicking this or right clicking. You can add different things. Components, give us a list of different components, and then this stuff doesn't matter. This just gives you documentation, tutorial support. Window, This gives you different windows for stuff. So, gives you different layouts. Unity has preset layouts, so if you go into Window Layouts, you can find different layouts that you like. There's 2x3, 4 split. I don't know why you do that. Default, tall, wide. You can also edit your layout and then save your layout or delete that layout. File has just, you know, normal build profiles, build and run, new project. Basically all the save stuff you need to do is in file. Edit is all the settings. And again, that's it for this bar up at the top. Well, everything that you need to know for now, that's up the top. You won't really be, for the first project, the Flappy Bird project, you won't really need to use any stuff up here. Alright, so that's everything you need to know for setting up Unity for this project. Another thing, you can also, you can use the scroll wheel to zoom in, you can use the scroll wheel to zoom out, and you can use the hold down the right click to move around. Okay, now that's everything you need to move around the Unity hierarchy, or the Unity editor. I will see you in the next video.